Hey, welcome to the Treasure of Glory YouTube channel. Visit my website at treasureofglory.com and you'll find some blog articles and e-courses and some information that will help you grow in your knowledge of God. If you like the videos and you like what you see and hear, please subscribe and click the bell so you can always know when I post new material. So we've been talking about knowing God. That is the series. But before you know God, you need to first believe in Him. And for some people, that's their first hurdle. So that's the purpose of these first few videos. We're going to establish the fact that He's real. And we're going to continue that theme today by talking about the Kalam Cosmological Argument. This argument comes from Muslim theologians who further developed the cosmological argument during the Islamic Golden Age, which was the 8th century to the 14th century. The word kalam is an Arabic word that means speech or doctrine, and the word was used to mean all of the medieval Islamic theology. So here's how the Kalam cosmological argument is broken down. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Let's start with premise 1. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. We could also say it like this. Nothing begins to exist without something or someone else causing it to happen. We may not know what this something or someone is, but it's part of the human experience and scientific study that nothing just pops into existence from nothing for no reason, including the cosmos. Now, this is where atheists bring up their objections to this premise, which in my opinion are not very good. They often quote Stephen Hawking, who wrote that the universe came from a quantum vacuum. They love to point to the uncertainty of the quantum realm and how virtual particles are popping in and out of existence out of a quantum energy field, as if this energy field is nothing. A field of any kind is not nothing, even if that field exists for less than Planck time, which is the shortest measurable unit of time. It's true that virtual particles or gauge bosons that carry the forces of nature like light, gravity, the strong force, and the weak force exist for less than Planck time. But this is not the same thing as saying the universe and everything in it just popped into existence uncaused. They also argue the universe is eternal. It just cycles through expansion and retraction. But how is it possible to believe in an eternal universe, but not an eternal being that created it? That seems a little inconsistent. If it's possible for the universe to be eternal, then it's possible for there to be an eternal creator. At the very least, it makes more sense logically to believe the universe, even if it is eternal, came from an intelligence that is eternal. To truly understand the premise of the Kalam argument, you have to understand what we mean by nothing. Nothing can't create anything, and it certainly can't create everything. Not if you truly take nothing to mean nothing. If you start with nothing and there was always nothing, we would have nothing now. Now let's get back to the quantum vacuum. So if the universe came from the quantum vacuum, you have to ask, where did the quantum vacuum come from? And if you can find out where the quantum vacuum came from, you have to ask where that thing came from that preceded it. Eventually you come to nothing, as it must truly be understood. Nothing means nothing. Not a quantum field, no energy of any kind, nothing. It goes against everything we know to be true to believe that something as complex as the universe could truly emerge from nothingness without some kind of intelligence initiating it. And this is the heart of the first premise. For something to begin to exist, whether it is a universe, a human, or a car, we know intuitively that it was brought into being by some other agent. But some people actually believe in the scientific impossibility of everything in the cosmos emerging from nothing. That requires way more faith to believe than believing some intelligent being did it. So let's talk about the Big Bang. Because now that we've established that something doesn't just begin to exist uncaused, we're ready to see if the second premise is true. Did the universe have a definite beginning? Some atheists like to argue in favor of an eternal universe. But what do scientists currently believe about our cosmological origins? It took the brightest minds in physics, including Albert Einstein, to finally accept the fact that the universe must have had a beginning. Even when their own equations proved it, they just couldn't accept it. Not because of the science, but because of the theological and philosophical implications of it. They were very comfortable believing the universe was eternal because they didn't want to have God in the equation. But when the proof just kept pouring in that refuted this idea, they got backed into a corner and they couldn't escape it. Cosmologists believe the universe started as a single point, much smaller than the smallest piece of matter. It's hard to imagine everything in the universe all packed into an incredibly dense region smaller than an electron. But that is the current thinking. The Big Bang was the instant everything in the universe came into being from this single point. At the moment the universe began, there were no electrons, no atoms, no quarks, or other pieces of matter. There was no gravity, no light, no Higgs field, no nothing. There was only one particle and one force. In a fraction of a second after the Big Bang, expansion began and other elementary particles began to form. Let's say we were fortunate enough to have a video camera set up to record the Big Bang, and let's say we just watched the universe unfold for billions and billions of years, and then we decided to rewind the tape back to the beginning. What would we see? We would see all of the galaxies, stars, all the cosmic dust, everything quickly go back to their original point at the Big Bang, and the screen would go dark, and there would be nothing. But imagine for a second what we would see if it were possible to go to a time before the Big Bang, a time before time. We already said there was nothing, and by nothing we mean nothing. Nothing that could cause itself to exist or give itself being. But there was something, and it was immaterial. It's called information. For there to be a Big Bang from nothing, there had to be information to tell the nothingness stuff to go bang. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if there was nothing, then what was it that went bang? And without information, how did this nothingness know when to go bang? Information had to tell it, okay, now. And without information, how did this nothingness know how to go bang? What rules or laws of nature was it going to follow? Was it going to implode on itself or go out? I mean, something had to tell it what to do. And information had to be present to tell it where to go bang. I mean, why is our universe where it is versus somewhere else? Information was the force that said, this is how you will go bang, and this is how you will expand. So information preceded the stuff that went bang. Because without information, there is no stuff, because stuff can't actualize itself and bring itself into being. So it is true that everything that begins to exist did not bring itself into existence. Something caused it. We just know that to be logically and scientifically true. It is also true that the universe began to exist at the Big Bang. That is our current understanding. A static, eternal universe goes against our current cosmological model. Therefore, the universe began to exist because something or someone caused it to exist. If the universe began at a single point called a singularity, this means all matter and energy had a beginning point. There must have been a point in time before there was matter and energy. If there was no energy, there was no matter, and we know this from E = mc squared. If there was no energy in matter and no space for it to move in, there was no time, because time is really the measurement of the motion of matter and energy in space. So someone unmoved, someone uncaused, someone outside of time and space, and outside of matter and energy, someone immaterial, had to kickstart this whole thing. And a perfect fit for this description is mind, because mind implies intelligence. That's the only logical explanation. Nothing atheists throw at these arguments really pack any punch, in my opinion. I mean, if you've got something that makes more sense, let me know. But just to say that nothing plus time plus chance creates everything, I don't buy it. Now let's talk about another argument for God's existence, the teleological argument. or the idea that the universe is fine-tuned for life. The word teleology comes from the Greek word telos, which means purpose or goal. So this argument aims to show how the universe having a purpose means it was created on purpose by God. This is more commonly known as the design argument, since the universe shows obvious signs of design, which implies a designer. If there truly is no God, then we shouldn't exist as a human race. The chances of us not being here are greater than us being here, so we must have been put here for a reason. We overcame all odds. Therefore, an intelligent being caused us to be here. We know this because life only exists because the universe is fine-tuned for it. The created universe seems to be more than a cosmic accident. Well, the universe was not an accident, and we know that from the previous section. We know everything that comes into being, even a universe, has a cause. But the universe wasn't just created, it was fine-tuned to make it even possible for us to be having this lesson. So what is meant by fine-tuning? Well, let's say you're tuning a guitar. Each string has to vibrate at a specific frequency to produce a certain tone, or the guitar is out of tune and will sound terrible. The thicker string on the guitar has to produce an E. Now, for it to be the musical pitch E, the string has to vibrate at a certain frequency. If the string is too short, the frequency will be too high, causing it to be sharp. If the string is too long, the wavelengths in the pitch will be too long, making the note flat. But too long and too short, we're talking just a little bit too long and a little bit too short. Not a drastic change, but just very, very small differences. So we have to fine-tune the instrument by turning the knobs on the head of the instrument until the string vibrates at just the right frequency. In other words, we have to make the string the right size, and we're talking millimeters. When it does vibrate at the right frequency, it is said to be in tune. When it comes to the universe, the forces of nature like gravity, the strong and weak force, electromagnetism, and so forth, are tuned to such precision that the universe couldn't even exist if the numbers were off by even the slightest. In other words, the forces can't be any stronger or weaker. The strong nuclear force, for example, can't be a little sharp or a little flat. It has to be exact. They can't even be a little stronger or a little weaker. Just like a B flat has to be exact or it won't sound right against other notes, so too these constants in the universe have to be just right or the whole cosmic symphony comes to a stop. Let me give you some more illustrations. I'm going to share with you some things I learned from J. Warner Wallace in his Cold Case Christianity lecture about fine-tuning. The first illustration involves placing dimes over every inch of the North American continent with no space between, and then stacking them all the way to the moon 1 billion times. That's a lot of dimes. Now let's blindfold someone and ask them to find the one red dime stacked among all the dimes. They can only pick one time. What are the odds that anyone would pick the one red dime? I mean, it's certainly possible they could get lucky, but the chances are 1 in 10 to the 37th power. That is one way of looking at the precision of the strong nuclear force, which is what keeps protons and neutrons sticking together even though they are opposite charges wanting to fly apart. If you take away or add just one dime to the massive pile, atoms would fly apart or collapse upon themselves. There would be no universe and definitely no life. Here's another illustration to help explain the precision of the mass density of the universe. What are the odds that you could hit a bullseye 1 inch wide at the opposite end of the universe? If you miss the bullseye by even a fraction of an inch, the universe dissolves. No pressure, right? You only have 1 in 10 to the 60th chance. The chance that the mass density of the universe is just right for life is the same. You could never hit the bullseye, and the universe could never have such an exact constant if God is not real. We could go on and on with more, but you get the point. Now imagine picking up a guitar in the attic, and to your astonishment, the thing plays perfectly in tune. what would you conclude? Well, you wouldn't think that it had been up there for 40 years by itself. You would know that some intelligence came by and tuned the strings because you know over time, if the guitar had just been sitting there, the tension in the strings would have loosened, causing the strings to be out of tune. Now imagine you enter a universe that is fine tuned for life. What would you conclude? That someone tuned the universe for life. Obviously. A guitar doesn't tune itself, and neither does a universe. This is exactly what God did when He created our matrix. He wasn't satisfied with an out of tune universe where an E is sharp or flat. It had to be precise for life to emerge. And it seems more likely that intelligence tuned it rather than time and chance. One of the points of this argument that point to a creator is the fact that the fine-tuning and all the parameters required for life had to be in place before the Big Bang, or the universe would not be here. A scenario where there was a Big Bang of matter and energy, and then the universe kind of figured it out as it went along and developed mathematical and scientific laws to govern itself is impossible. All of the cosmological laws of science had to be in place before there was a bang, because had it been slightly different than it was, we wouldn't be here right now. For example, if the rate of expansion of the universe had been slightly off, just 10 to the 43 seconds after the Big Bang, the universe would have either collapsed back on itself or expanded too fast, just evaporating into nothingness. So right out the gate, the expansion rate of the universe had to be predetermined and written into the laws of the cosmos. And as we discussed earlier, information had to precede the Big Bang for all of this to make sense. And if there was information before the Big Bang, there was mind. And this points to the existence of God.